Hello, welcome to Lesson 3, the final lesson for Chapter 5. In this lesson, we will be going over an frequently asked FAQ, frequently asked question on conscience, which will allow us to identify some of the factors that could create an erroneous conscience. We will also look at the impact of peer pressure on your conscience. And then finally, we are going to introduce what will be the test for the chapter. We're going to watch the film How to Train Your Dragon 2 and apply what we've learned about the conscience to the characters in the film. So the first thing we did with this chapter was classwork 5.23. We're going to look at an interesting scene from The Messenger. It was a film from, I think, about 1999 when I graduated high school about St. Joan of Arc. And there's a scene where she's in prison where she has a conversation with her conscience. So based on what you've learned, you're going to put a post on Schoology. What is the strength of the scene and what is a weakness? And be sure to state why or what makes it strong or weak. So let me show you where that is on Schoology. If you're watching this because you were absent, please contact me to find out whether or not this is an assignment that needs to be made up or whether or not you're excused. So we go to the pink Chapter 5 folder, red Morality Discussions folder, and it's right here, 5.23, Lesson 3, Warm-Up Conscience and Joan of Arc. So let me click on that. So here are the instructions that I just read to you from the PowerPoint. We watched the scene from The Messenger, and then people responded here, and we discussed it in class. Again, check with me to see if this needs to be made up or you're excused. So your book offers a FAQ on the conscience. FAQ stands for Frequently Asked Questions. So the first one here, must I always follow my conscience? And the answer is yes. You must always follow your conscience. It is that place that is deep within you where, it's very key to who you are as a person. So you must follow your conscience. You must follow remember, the conscience is ultimately a judgment call about using the intellect, about what is the right action. So you must always follow your conscience. You should always try to be sure. If you're not sure about a situation, then you need to do more of the study part of the SEER method. But when push comes to shove, always follow your conscience. Can my conscience ever be wrong? Yes. And a lot of people in today's world of cultural relativity and moral relativity would say no. But yeah, your conscience can be wrong. Even a well-formed conscience can make a mistake. So think of some examples where people thought they were doing the right thing when they were really doing the wrong thing. The example I would offer is the 9/11 hijackers, the bombers. They had poorly formed consciences. They were formed by Islamic radicals like Osama bin Laden, who taught them that it was morally correct. It was the conscientious thing to do to kill Americans because they see us as sinners, as the infidel, as the enemy. But they were wrong. They had a poorly formed conscience that was erroneous. Now, at the end of the day, they probably thought they were doing the right thing, but what they did was wrong. So yes, your conscience can be wrong. If you follow your conscience and later find out it was a mistake, you're not guilty of sin. Because again, you acted in what we would call good conscience. But you have to, again, go deep down inside and ask yourself the question, you must always act in good conscience. Again, if you're not sure, you need to figure out what's right or wrong. And we all know we all can think of times where we did something deep down our conscience said was wrong, but we did it anyway. That's not good conscience. You knew it was wrong, but you did it anyway. So this is only in instances where you later find out you were mistaken, where you would be not guilty of sin. So this is a great quote from the Church in the Modern World. The most secret and core sanctuary of a person where he was alone with God. That's their definition of conscience. And that's why it's so important, because God, at the end of the day, he knows what your conscience says, even if you deny it to yourself. Here's our next question. What factors contribute to an erroneous conscience? So there's a big, long list here. Let's go through them one by one. Ignorance. So in the case I gave you over here of the 9/11 hijackers, they had consciences that were formed. They had a erroneous conscience. They were ignorant of the truth of the teachings of Jesus Christ. They were, and there's ignorance. There's willful ignorance, meaning, well, you know what the truth is, but you just don't want to. You know deep down what's right and wrong, but you willfully don't learn more because you know that if you knew the whole truth, your conscience would be convicted. So, for example, if you knew pornography was wrong, you had an inkling, but you didn't bother to find out why and you kept doing it, that would be a willfully ignorant conscience. You knew, but you didn't bother to learn more so you could try to get away with it. But then there's an invincible. An invincible ignorance would be an ignorance that there's nothing you could do. It is invincible. The 9/11 hijackers, let's assume for a moment that they were had no ability to learn the truth. They were indoctrinated in a foreign country by Osama bin Laden. They had no ability to actually learn the truth. That would be an invincible ignorance they couldn't solve on their own, and you wouldn't be held liable for that. But it could lead your conscience to be in error. Insincerity. So insincerity could be not making an effort. So no effort to actually form your conscience. So you didn't take any efforts to actually learn right or wrong. You just were lazy, basically, so that you could kind of get away with doing what you know is wrong. Insincerity of vice would be once, perhaps you didn't really make an effort, so you grow in that vice, and then you begin to rationalize bad behavior. So suppose, for example, you were a cheater, and you kind of just cheated your way through high school. You were lazy. You didn't make an effort to really be a good person. By the time you get to college, you are so involved in the vice of cheating, you say to yourself, well, this is just the way I am. Well, that's no excuse. You have a duty to form your conscience. Again, forming the conscience is part of your duty, knowing what's right and wrong. And so a rationalization is a way to make an excuse for behavior deep down you know is wrong. And it's not enough to just say, this is who I am, this is the way I am. You're responsible for your actions, and you're responsible for having a well-formed conscience. Bad examples can also lead to an erroneous conscience. Now, obviously, you wouldn't be completely culpable for this, but I know from my own experience, when I was younger, I used to curse a lot because I had the bad example of my parents cursing. Deep down, I knew it was wrong, but it had become a habit of vice. But through the good influence of other people, namely my boyfriend in high school, he didn't want to date a girl that talked like that. So I was able to overcome that bad example. False autonomy of conscience is when you basically make your conscience your own law. You'd be like, well, no one can tell me what to do. I'm my own law. My conscience says it's right. But again, are you being honest? You can't just make up your own rules. Your conscience isn't its own law. It has to conform to an objective moral standard. Rejection of church teaching. So again, this would lead to an erroneous conscience. If you were just to out and out reject church teaching, that would lead your conscience to be in error. Because again, God gave us the teachings of the church to help guide our conscience. He knows our conscience sometimes goes the wrong way because of the effects of original sin. So rejecting church teaching is an obvious way your conscience will be in error. Lack of true repentance. So we've all been in the situation where We did with something we knew was wrong, but we weren't really sorry. If we're not going to be truly sorry, truly contrite for what we've done, that will lead to errors in conscience. And again, lack of love. Love, again, is to will. Love is to will the good of the other. And so when we lack love, that can lead us to have an erroneous conscience. We don't really care about anyone else. We're selfish, and that leads us to error. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so freedom versus license. We need freedom to be able to act on our conscience. We can think of examples like in the United States during the Vietnam War, even World War II and other wars, they have what are called conscientious objectors. These are people who were drafted, but because of their conscience, they felt that war was wrong. They're pacifists. And the United States government recognized their freedom. They couldn't force them to violate their conscience. You should never violate your conscience. So they found other ways that these people could serve their country without actually being involved in fighting. So freedom and conscience go together. But again, license is unbridled freedom, freedom unchecked. And this will always lead to our downfall. You just can't do whatever you want. Again, remember, we are ordered toward the good. It's part of our human nature. And you could try to violate all you want, but ultimately that's going to lead not to happiness, but to sadness. Sincere people will form their conscience. So sincere people are honest. They have integrity. Integrity means, as Jesus says, let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. It means you're a person who's whole, who isn't saying one thing and doing the other. The word in the Bible for this is teleos. I might have spelt it wrong. But Jesus says, when we hear Jesus telling us to be perfect as God is perfect, it's not perfect as in no, you don't make mistakes. It means you have integrity. You're whole. You don't say one thing and do the other. That's what perfection is to Jesus, to God. We're sincere. We are thoughtful, and we want to be truly good people. And forming your conscience is about making it ordered. You always want to be ordered to the good. Knowing what's right and making your body, your internal compass point toward it. We need the church to do this. Sin makes us blind. It makes us ignorant. And so the church will give us the true teachings so that we can be ordered toward the good. We need the virtues of fortitude also with prudence and justice in order to do this. Remember, the virtues are all about the idea that we need to have a balance so that we don't go to extremes. So the virtue of prudence helps us so that we don't do anything rash, so we don't just go off half-cocked, but also that we aren't just lazy and never act. Prudence is the middle ground where we act with wisdom. And both the virtues of prudence and justice help us to, with the virtue of fortitude. Fortitude is that spiritual strength and courage that helps us overcome peer pressure. The example your book gave of peer pressure was actually pretty interesting. They gave the example of Watergate. If you guys don't know, Watergate was the great scandal that led to the downfall of President Nixon's presidency, where they were using criminal means to try to win an election. And when they asked the conspirators, excuse me, I gotta get a drink here. When they asked the conspirators in the Watergate scandal, well, why didn't you stop? Why didn't you say something? They all said because they were afraid. And they were afraid because of peer pressure within the administration. So peer pressure isn't just something teenagers or young people face. We all face it. And that's why, again, every chapter we keep going back to those virtues. These are these habits, these patterns of behavior that allow us to overcome peer pressure that could lead us to ignore our conscience. I mean, everyone listening to this lecture, think of a time where there was something you knew was wrong, but you felt pressured by your peers and went against your conscience. Maybe cheating. Maybe somebody pressured you into handing them your homework because they didn't do it. Maybe you were at a party and you didn't really want to drink alcohol, but everyone else is doing it and you didn't want to look like a big nerd and not do it. We've all been there, but we got to, again, that's when we need to practice fortitude with prudence and justice in order to overcome those pressures. So, finally, let's go to the last slide. What we're going to do is we're going to think about conscience, and we're going to watch How to Train Your Dragon 2, and we're going to apply the SEER method to the film. So remember, the SEER method was study, elect, execute, review. And we're going to look at how do the characters in How to Train Your Dragon employ their conscience or fail to do so, and how does that play out in the film. And we can do this by applying the SEER method. One of the ways you're going to want to do this is by kind of comparing and contrasting different characters. So how does, say, Hiccup act differently than Stoic? Or how does Hiccup act differently than Drago? So you need to take notes while we're watching the film, and you're going to turn those in. This assignment, the title I changed, this is going to be T5. The paragraph is going to be your test, and this is going to be classwork 5.24. You will turn in your notes, so you do need to be taking notes while you watch the film. If you're absent, this is something you're going to need to make up. You're either going to need to rent the movie, watch it on Netflix, or come in at lunch and watch it. Let me show you where these assignments are on Schoology. So again, if you recall, we're in that pink chapter 5 folder. So you scroll down until you find the pink chapter 5 folder. We're going to open that and go to classwork. That's where you're going to turn in your notes. So here, classwork 5.24, How to Train Your Dragon notes. Please take notes and upload them there. But since I'm going to use this as your test for this chapter, you'll find the rubric for the paragraph in the test folder. So we're going to go back, and tests and quizzes are always in yellow. So chapter 5, open this folder. There will be an objective quiz, but there's going to be this writing. So here it is here, T5, How to Train Your Dragon analysis. So this needs to be turned in to turnitin.com. All the information is here. It should be under 20%. If you don't turn it in to turnitin.com, I won't grade it. But here's the prompt for this, so be aware of this when you're watching the movie. Excuse me, I have a cold. All right, so let's take a look at the prompt. Based on what you've learned in Chapter 5, respond to the question below in a thoughtful, well-organized paragraph or paragraphs. Please use the guidelines below to help frame your paragraph, but do not limit yourself to them. Please set up your paragraph with a topic sentence that describes what you will address and outlines your paragraph in like a mini thesis statement. This is the prompt. How did the characters in How to Train Your Dragon 2 employ or fail to employ their conscience in decision making? What is the consequence of their use of conscience? And this is basically what you should do in answering the question. Set up your paragraph with a topic statement that outlines what you will describe. Define conscience and explain the role it plays in moral decision making. Describe it fully with 3 sentences. If you want an A, please make sure you cite a source, either the Catechism, the text, or the NC article, National Catholic Register article we read in class. Next, describe an example or examples of characters from the film using or failing to use their conscience. Make a strong example. To make a strong example, be very specific in your description. It's better to have one strong example than many poor ones. Analyze your examples. How did the character use his or her conscience to make a decision? And this is important. What was the evidence that the conscience was used or not used? Compare the character's actions with your definition. So again, that's really important. You can't just say Hiccup used his conscience when he did XYZ. You have to say this is an example of using the conscience because, and connect your example to your definition. What were the consequences of the decision? Be specific and use the vocabulary you've learned. Minimum 3 sentences. Maintain a formal writing style with attention to detail, grammar, style, and syntax. Use MLA format, including MLA citations if necessary, and works cited if necessary. So if we scroll down, this is the rubric. I'm not going to read through every point here. You need to do that on your own. You'll be great on your topic statement, your definition of conscience, and notice to get the 5 out of 5, you got to cite a source and do well. 4 would cite a source but wouldn't be strong. And then if you don't cite a source, you can only get 3 and above. Describe an example of the characters in the film using their conscience or failing to use it. Oftentimes, comparing one character to the other makes for a strong paper. If we continue, describe the examples from the film. Okay, so we did that. And then analysis of your example, compare it to your definition. You'll be graded on your writing. And here I have some suggestions. So here's some suggestions that might be helpful. Compare and contrast 2 characters and analyze how each employs their conscience and the consequences of their decisions. Very often that's a good strategy. Apply the SEER method to an example from the film and use it to analyze the character's moral decision making. So use that SEER method we went over and apply it to one character. How did they study? How did they elect? How did they execute? Did they review? Compare the exercise of power in the film. Who uses power conscientiously and who does not? How does conscience relate to the proper use of power? One of the main themes in the film is whether or not people are capable of change. What role does the conscience play in our ability to change? Remember the idea of review. If you find you've done wrong, you repent and you reform. Especially if you look at How to Train Your Dragon 1 and compare the characters and How to Train Your Dragon 2, one can see how the use of conscience is key to repentance and reform. Pick a virtue or vice that the characters in the film exemplify. What role does that virtue or vice play in the character's ability to employ his or her conscience? Again, one of the things you'll notice about, say, Hiccup is he has the virtue of fortitude, whereas you could contrast him with his father, which he actually has the vice of being too passionate. He relies too much on his passions. He's more of a reactor than an actor. Finally, one last way to attack it. One key teaching of the church is that to violate one's conscience is a sin. In the film, Hiccup is firmly against violating his conscience. He can be seen as an example of a sort of quote-unquote conscientious objector. Analyze his use of conscience from the perspective of this Catholic principle. So stronger paragraphs are going to use vocabulary. Here's some vocab you should try to use. Moral object, consequence, intentions, circumstance, consequences, natural moral law, objective moral norms, intrinsic moral evil, alternatives, and again, here's all the details. This is also on Schoology about turning it into turnitin.com. If you do not turn your paper into turnitin.com, I will not grade it. If it comes back over 20%, I will double check to see if it's not just quotes, but otherwise, if it's over 20%, you're going to have to rewrite it. So just be conscientious about that. So if you have any questions about any of this or the assignment, please see me. Good luck, and I can't wait to read your analysis.